Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host.
And I'm our expert. Great to be here.
Today, we're diving into the life, the work, the whole story, really, of Steve Jobs.
That's right. We're using the Bloomberg Originals documentary, Steve Jobs, How a Dreamer Changed the World, as our main source. We really want to dig into his journey, the pivotal moments, the big decisions.
And those revolutionary products, of course.
Exactly. The things that genuinely changed the world.
It's a story with incredible highs, some pretty significant lows, and ultimately a huge legacy in tech, media, everywhere, really.
And exploring figures like Jobs, I think, offers some really valuable insights for anyone interested in innovation, maybe leadership too.
Definitely. So let's start at the beginning. Where did it all kick off?
Well, he was born in San Francisco, 1955, grew up right in the heart of what was becoming Silicon Valley.
So that environment, that culture of experimentation, it must have seeped in early on.
Oh, undoubtedly. But it wasn't just tech. The documentary points to the 60s and 70s counterculture being a big influence.
Right, like the Beatles, Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
That sort of anti-establishment thinking.
Precisely. Questioning norms. You can kind of see that thread running through his whole life. He even went to Reed College for a bit, didn't stay long, dropped out, went traveling.
And after that exploration phase?
He came back and got really fascinated by this emerging idea of a personal computer, which led him to the Homebrew Computer Club.
Ah, and that's where he connects with Steve Wozniak, right? The tech genius.
That's the one. Wozniak was the engineer, the builder. But what's interesting, and the film highlights this, Wozniak himself said Jobs knew how to sell the things he built. Jobs saw the bigger picture, the market.
So Woz builds it, Jobs figures out how to make people want it. That's the dynamic.
Pretty much. They started, famously, in a garage in Los Altos. Classic Silicon Valley.
The Apple one. But they didn't even have a phone line. How did they even reach stores?
It sounds crazy now, doesn't it? Talk about bootstrapping.
From there, though, things really took off. The founding of Apple, and then the Apple II. The documentary calls that their first taste of astounding success. What made it so different?
Well, several things. It had a color display, which was huge then. Built-in keyboard, much easier to use. It just looked friendlier, more like a consumer product than a kit for hobbyists.
Made accessible.
Exactly. That user focus was pretty revolutionary for the time.
And the success was sudden, right? There's that story about Jobs being shocked when Apple went public, seeing the stock value just soar.
Yeah, totally taken aback. Suddenly they were, the stars of Silicon Valley.
And that environment, Silicon Valley, it encouraged risk-taking, didn't it? Failure wasn't necessarily the end.
That's a key point. The penalty for failure was relatively low, which definitely fueled that ambition. But they needed money to scale up the Apple II.
Enter Mike Markula, the angel investor.
Right. He put in $90,000 and got them a line of credit. That was absolutely vital. It let them turn Woz's design into a mass market product.
Okay, so Apple's flying high. Then comes this pivotal visit. Xerox PRC in '79. What happened there?
Oh, that was a game changer. Jobs and his team saw things Xerox had developed but wasn't really pushing commercially. The graphical user interface, icons, windows.
And the mouse.
And the mouse, exactly. Jobs instantly got it. He apparently called it a one-way door. Once you saw that, there was no going back to just typing commands.
He knew he had to bring that to Apple.
Absolutely. He was determined. But this kind of ambition, it caused some friction internally. Power dynamics started shifting. The board felt they needed more, let's say, conventional management experience.
Which leads to John Scully from Pepsi and that famous line.
Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? Classic Jobs. Very persuasive.
So Scully comes in as president. What did that mean for Jobs' projects? He was working on the Lisa computer.
He was, yeah. Lisa was advanced, but it didn't really succeed commercially. After Scully arrived, Jobs poured all his energy, intensely, into the Macintosh project instead.
The Mac. And he was famously demanding about it. The documentary mentions how tough he was on the team.
Oh, incredibly tough. Relentless pursuit of perfection. There's that story, right? Rejecting work someone spent over 24 hours on, just saying it's not good enough. Brutal, maybe, but
it led to something revolutionary.
It did. The Macintosh, when it launched, was just stunning. The design, the interface, completely different. And the marketing, that 1984 Super Bowl ad.
Unforgettable. Aired once, created a massive buzz. Apple versus Big Brother, IBM.
Huge impact, generated so much free press. But here's the twist. Despite all the hype, the documentary notes Mac sales were initially disappointing.
Really? After all that?
Yeah. And that led to questions about Jobs' leadership, his methods. Tensions grew between him and Scully, a real power struggle.
And the board sided with Scully?
They did. And Jobs was essentially pushed out, fired effectively from the company he started. Must have been devastating.
Hard to imagine. But he didn't just disappear. He founded NXT pretty quickly, right? Took some top Apple people with him.
That's right. Regrouped fast, aiming to build another insanely great computer, as he'd say.
How did NXT do?
Well, the hardware struggled. The computers were powerful, beautiful even, but very expensive. They had trouble finding their market.
But the software.
The software was different. The Next Step operating system was technically brilliant, really ahead of its time. Eventually, they realized that was their strength and pivoted to focus just on software.
Interesting how that worked out. The film also touches on his personal life around this time. His Stanford speech comes up.
Yeah, that 2005 commencement address was incredibly open. He talked about his adoption, finding his biological parents. Very moving stuff, gave real insight into him.
And he got married, started a family.
Yes, to Lorene Powell. He called it a very creative time personally. And professionally, another huge thing was happening, Pixar.
Right. He bought a division from Lucasfilm, a computer graphics group.
Turned it into Pixar, partnered with John Lasseter. Their goal, fully computer animated movies. They struck a deal with Disney.
And then came Toy Story in '95.
Boom! Huge hit. Changed animation forever. Pixar became this major Hollywood player. And the documentary points out when Pixar went public, its IPO made Steve Jobs a billionaire. What a comeback.
Incredible story arc. Meanwhile, what was happening back at Apple without him?
Not great, according to the film. They seemed to lose their way, their compass, as it puts it. Microsoft Windows was really dominating the market by then. Apple was struggling.
Market share dropping.
Yeah, things looked pretty bleak. And then, in this ironic and stunning turn of events, as the documentary calls it,
Apple bought NXT.
exactly, they needed NXT's operating system, and that purchase brought Steve Jobs back into the fold, initially as interim CEO, or ICDO.
The return, one of the great corporate turnaround stories ever. Stepping back into the company that fired him, what was his first impression?
Apparently he was blunt, told them the current products suck.
Vintage Jobs, no mincing word.
Nope, signaled big changes were coming. And then came another surprise. Bill Gates, Microsoft, investing $150 million in Apple.
Wow, the arch-rival investing.
Yeah.
That must have raised eyebrows.
Big time. But it showed maybe a willingness to cooperate, and it certainly helped Apple financially. Then came the Think Different campaign.
Ah, yes. Celebrating the crazy ones, the misfits. Rebuilding the brand.
Hugely important campaign. And then the product that really turned the tide, the iMac.
Those colorful, all-in-one computers, they look like nothing else.
Totally broke the mold. Huge seller. The documentary calls it the biggest selling computer of all time at that point. Crucial for the comeback.
So Apple's back from the brink.
Yeah.
But Jobs wasn't just thinking about computers anymore, was he?
No, his vision was broadening. In 2001, he unveiled the iPod. And apparently, it went from idea to launch in just 8 months. Incredible speed.
Amazing. But it wasn't just the device itself, was it?
Right. The hardware was cool, sleek, but the real genius, as the film says, was iTunes. It tackled music piracy head on.
By making it easy and legal to buy music online.
Exactly. He had tough negotiations with the music industry, apparently really stuck to his guns on the 99 cents a song price.
And it worked. For everyone.
It really did. Sold millions and millions of iPods. iTunes made money for Apple and the music labels. Win-win. And Apple product launches became these massive global events.
Their reality distortion field. His charisma was legendary.
Totally. He could make people believe. But then, personally, things got tough. His pancreatic cancer diagnosis in 2004.
He initially said the surgery was successful.
He did, publicly. But sadly, his health remained a concern in the background. Yet he kept pushing. 2007, the iPhone.
The revolutionary mobile, as the documentary puts it, changed everything again.
Just completely reshaped the phone industry and maybe society too, but the speculation about his health continued. He took medical leave, had a liver transplant in 2009.
Yet he still came back. Introduced the iPad.
Another giant success. Created a whole new product category. His drive was just relentless.
Until his final medical leave in January 2011.
Yeah. That Stanford speech comes back again, those closing words, stay hungry, stay foolish.
Kind of sums him up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That relentless curiosity, that willingness to challenge convention.
Perfectly. He passed away October 5th, 2011. He was only 56. And at that moment, Apple was the most valuable company on the planet.
An unbelievable legacy. The documentary ends with a simple, powerful thought. Lots of his ideas seem obvious now, in hindsight.
But nobody else did it. That really captures it, his unique vision.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's just an incredible story of vision, resilience, bouncing back from huge setbacks, and fundamentally changing multiple industries: tech, music, film.
Absolutely. His journey really does offer so much to think about regarding innovation, how to lead, how to pursue those really big game-changing ideas.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. Looking back at everything Steve Jobs did, what part of his story, maybe that intense drive, the way he saw the future, maybe just his sheer determination resonates most with you? And are there any lessons there you might think about applying in your own world?
Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.